Hanaina ora irga ira enemeg Ælista uaka. Hello and welcome to a new tutorial in the Ælis language video series. This is another throwback video to a topic we've covered before. Today, we'll elaborate on what we saw 21 videos ago, when we spoke about basic counting on one hand and personal pronouns on the other. We'll start with numbers first. Strap in. We've discussed how liska are combined with the number root word ka to obtain proper cardinal numbers. Aika, eka, ika, oka, waka, waika, weka, wika, and woka. For numbers 10 and up, we connect liska to one another just like we combine digits in the decimal system. So 10 is aiaka, 100 is aiaaka, and 1000 is aiaaaka. The more ciphers we need to write down a big number, the more equivalent liska we'll need in the corresponding Ælis number. And you can see how this approach gets a little unproductive and even problematic as numbers get bigger. Because if I give you the Ælis word for a million, which is aiaaaka, did you distinguish exactly how many a's are in there? I bet you not, unless you have a mind like a supercomputer. To work with big numbers, speakers may choose to resort to what is called the complex number system instead. The term complex is perhaps a bit misleading, because it's actually not that difficult. The system is actually inspired by fictional secret agent James Bond, whose codename is 007 in English. The Ælis complex approach draws from the idea that we say 007 rather than 007. So the complex number method in Ælis consists of grouping repeated digits in similar fashion as we do with 00. First, we count the amount of times that a certain digit repeats, which for example in case of a million is 6 zeros. The liska that corresponds to 6 is uai. Next, we reference the digit itself, which is the 0. Then, to indicate that we are using the complex number method, we firstly prefix the letter ido to the multiplier, and then, to the reference digit, we prefix the letter oda, which is the secondary case variant of ido. This way, we get the combination duaida, which refers to the 6 zeros used to write 1 million. But we still need a 1 at the front, so we also add I at the beginning. Finally, we must always reference the fact that this word is a proper number. Therefore, we end the word in ka. And that is how we obtain the word aiduaidaka, to say a million in Ælis. Using this simple method here is not necessarily wrong, but I hope it's fairly obvious why the simple method is gradually replaced by the complex one as numbers get bigger. So to say 1 billion, for example, which contains 9 zeros, we just use the corresponding liska, which is uo. So a billion becomes aiduodaka, and 10 billion would be aidaiadaka. An interesting fact about the Ælis number system is that the simple and complex methods may coact within the same number, which may actually be more intuitive for some speakers. See, in English and many other languages, a word like 10 billion has two components, 10 on one hand and billion on the other. 10 billion. Ælis may mimic this word structure. So instead of describing 10 billion as a 1 with 10 zeros, we may just as well describe 10 as one unit and then duodaka as a billion. This way we get aiaduodaka, 10 billion. The possibility of mixing both approaches makes the complex number system a bit more approachable. It allows you to memorize certain clusters as individual words with a one-on-one translation. For example, you can memorize the cluster didaka as a suffix for 1000. So I didaka, 1000. Ia didaka, 10,000. Iaa didaka, 100,000. A final note on the complex number system is that spelling and pronunciation are not linked to each other. It is allowed to pronounce the simple notation on the left as I didaka. The other way around, pronouncing the complex notation on the right according to the simple method is equally allowed, aiaaka. All of this is at the discretion of the speaker. This concludes the bit about the number system, and we'll now move over to the other topic we discussed 21 videos ago, the personal pronouns. In video 4, we explained how there are the 3 semantic genders of male, female, and mixed or undefined, and that we combine the corresponding root words with the liska 1, 2, and 3 for singular, and 6, 7, and 8 for plural. This is how we obtain 15 personal pronouns for Ælis. Nothing new so far. But it is actually only a part of the truth, because as a matter of fact, there are 2 more persons. There is the 4th person, oma, oni, and ote, as well as its plural form, uoma, uoni, and uote. And then there is the so-called 0th person, ama, ani, and ate, with its plural forms uama, uani, and uate. So what do these persons mean? The 4th person adds an extra degree of separation from the speaker than the 3rd person does. There are several contexts where you might use the 4th person. A first situation is when you are referring to someone that is beyond eyesight. Imagine having a conversation, and you ask your conversation partner, "Do you see that woman over there?" As the woman is within eyesight, you would refer to her as the 3rd person female, ini. In that case, using the 4th person, oni, would refer to another woman, a woman that is not the speaker, nor the addressee, nor any woman in the vicinity. It is another woman. A second situation where you may use the 4th person is when you want to emphasize that you are not in any way acquainted with the person you are referring to, or you don't know them personally, like perhaps a celebrity. Now, be careful, it is not so that the use of the 3rd person implies that you do know the person in question. It might still be a person you have never met, but the 4th person does express that there is a big degree of separation from the speaker. A third situation where you may use the 4th person is in prose, when you have been describing, let's say, a male character as ima for a while. You may use the 4th person oma to introduce a new character. In that case, oma translates to another man. The plural forms of the 4th person are used in the same situations, but refer to more than one person instead. The so-called 0th person is used in generalizations, and roughly corresponds to the English word one, as in, one does not simply not learn Ælis. If you want to generalize men or women specifically, you may use the personal pronouns ama and ani. Otherwise, you use the undefined pronoun ate. For example, both of these sentences are identical, and use the word teue ira, which means parent. Only in the sentence on the right, the word teue ira has been merged with the generalizing personal pronoun ate, creating ateue ira, a parent in general. As such, the sentence on the left is simply declarative and/or descriptive. The parent has to care for its child, whereas the sentence on the right expresses a generalization. A parent should always care for a child. The generalizing pronouns also exist in plural forms for speaking about men in general, women in general, or simply people in general. So this means that there are actually 30 personal pronouns of the simple type in Ælis, and in turn they can be used as ingredients to create tons of compound pronouns, something we've also discussed in the previous video on this topic. The possibilities are limited only by the imagination of the speaker. For example, if we combine aima, the male first person singular, with uaite, the first person plural of the mixed gender, we create aiuaite, which is a pronoun you can use to say me and the rest of my group. Or how about we combine ima, meaning him, with uama, the generalizing male person plural. You create iuama, which is a pronoun you can use to say him, just like all men. When mixing liska to create what is called a complex pronoun, pay attention that the liska always have to be placed in ascending order. Creating pronouns like waiaite or waima is therefore incorrect. And with this video, we've taken yet another step in uncovering the elegance of this language. I hope you had fun. Na ora!